Hey, folks, welcome to another episode of Cutter One. I am your host, Jay Just Jay, your resident troublemaker and your resident culture warrior. I hope you're all doing well on this lovely Thursday as we edge our way closer into the weekend. All right, guys, let's get right into it. We have another article coming to us from the folks at CBR.com. This one's from Ben Hardwick, and it says The Rings of Power has a chance to finally explain the Dwarven Rings. The 7 rings gifted to the Dwarven Lords have little lore surrounding them, but the Rings of Pewter has a chance to finally explain their fate. If there's one thing the Rings of Pewter must get right, it's the Rings of Power themselves. These magical gifts mark a huge turning point where Sauron goes from a nuisance to a threat to the very existence of Middle Earth. Although, despite their importance in the Lord of the Rings timeline, there's still a surprising amount of ambiguity surrounding the Rings of Power, specifically concerning the ones gifted to dwarves. In elven lore, there's a famous verse, quote, 3 rings for the elven kings under the sky, 7 for the dwarf lords in their halls of stone, 9 for mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the dark lord on his dark throne, in the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie. Everyone knows what happens to the 1 ring, and the 9 gifted to men turn them to Nazgul. The 3 for elves are later worn by Elrond, Gandalf, and Galadriel during The Lord of the Rings. But as for the 7 gifted to the dwarves, things are far from clear. Which dwarves were gifted Sauron's Rings of Power? Despite their importance, Tolkien never confirmed which 7 dwarf lords were gifted the Rings of Power. It's a safe bet to say one was given to each major dwarven clan: the Iron Fists, Durin's Folk, Broadbeams, Firebeards, Stonefoots, Stiffbeards, and Blacklocks. But as for who specifically earned a Ring of Power, that's entirely down to speculation. At the very least, dwarven stories imply that King Durin III received one. With he and his son being a key part of the Rings of Pewter, it seems likely he'll be gifted a ring in the show. More specifically, tales of Durin III claim he was gifted the Ring of Thror, which was said to make the wearer exceedingly rich and multiply whatever valuables they mined. What became of the ring is left unknown, as some tales say it was lost in the mines of Moria. Gandalf, however, claims it was taken from Thorin Oakenshield's father before The Hobbit. I think he means Thorin Oakenshield's father, but okay, I digress. As for how the dwarves handled the Rings of Power, they managed to fare better than most. Men were corrupted and turned to Nazgul, while the elves quickly removed their rings to avoid the effects. But for the dwarves, they're so stubborn and unruly that Sauron's 1 ring had little to no effect on them, at least in the short term. Over time, many dwarven kingdoms fell to ruin and were left completely abandoned, and it wouldn't be surprising if the rings had a part to play. By the time of the Lord of the Rings, it's said that Sauron had reclaimed 3 dwarven rings, while the remaining 4 had been swallowed or destroyed by dragons. But other than that, the fate of the rings is kept intentionally vague, which gives the Rings of Pewter plenty of wiggle room with the adaptation. The corruption of Durin III could be shown from his son's point of view. As for the dragons which destroy the others, there's the potential for fire-breathing beasts to appear at any time. With how important the Rings of Power are to the elves and men, there's no doubt that they'll be the center of attention in the coming seasons. But it'll be a missed opportunity if the dwarves are ignored. Durin III's descent could offer a more subtle insight into the ring's corruption, and be a rare opportunity to add to Middle-earth's lore without conflicting with Tolkien's work. The Rings of Pewter, Season 2, does not have a release date, and no one gives a flying fuck. All right. I mean, yeah, it would be interesting. It would be interesting. I'm definitely not. With the way they did the dwarves dirty. A lot of people say, oh, the dwarves were one of the highlights of the Rings of Pewter. I think they did the dwarves dirty. To be honest with you, I think Disa, her character is an abomination, and I'm not saying that because of her ethnicity or the ethnicity of the actress who played her. That no, I'm just saying her character as overall. Okay, I was not impressed with her character. Her character didn't feel Tolkien-esque in any way, shape, or form. It has nothing to do with her ethnicity or the visuals. Just the character itself didn't seem very Tolkien like, right? She seemed more like generic mystic wife of one of the main characters in any sort of generic fantasy show, right? Like you're Groknar, your wife is a druid who prays to the old gods. That's she came across like that, right? Disa could have, her character and her character traits would be at home just as easily in Westeros in the Game of Thrones universe as she was in Tolkien, which tells you that she didn't come across, at least to me, as very Tolkien-esque of a character, right? So there was that, not to mention if you do want to get into the whole, appearance of everything, and, her being a random black dwarf that, scientifically makes no sense, right? But even within Tolkien's lore as to what female dwarves look like still makes no sense, right? Because they didn't make her look like the way female dwarves are described in Tolkien's writing, right? She looked like a actress playing a female dwarf from generic fantasy movie, okay? But also, like, even with some of the main characters, like, during the fourth and stuff like that, with his famous, like, give me the meat and give it to me raw, nonsense. They just, Gimli in Peter Jackson's films. Now, granted, he had a few moments too. Nobody tosses a dwarf and stuff like that at Helm's Deep, but overall, he represented what you would classically envision as dwarves, okay, in a fantasy setting, and came across as very Tolkien-esque, whereas I don't think in the Rings of Pewter the dwarves did. Now, having said that, it would be interesting to see how things play out in terms of the seven dwarven rings. I won't argue that wouldn't be interesting to see. I just don't think that the Rings of Pewter is the show to do it. That's just me. That's just my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. Yeah, I mean, so I don't know. I just don't I don't think that this show could do it and do it in any sense of do it with any sense of justice. I don't I just don't think the show can do it. That's just my take on it. You know, but you let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. Personally, I already think that, like I said, I think the dwarves were done dirty by this show. They were treated sort of half-assed. And the reason why I say that is because I don't think the characters of the dwarves were meant to be or were factored in. I think it was more because they wanted to show Khazad-dûm at its height before it fell and became, the Mines of Moria. And that, I think that was more what was going on there, is that they wanted to show that, not necessarily create a good story arc for some of the dwarves. But that's just me. I could be totally wrong on that one. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Do you think the Rings of Pewter can do the dwarves justice? Well, two questions. Okay, question number one. Would you want to see how the seven rings for the dwarven kings play out, and how that sort of wraps up? And two, do you think the Rings of Pewter has it within it as a show to be able to tell that story and do it in a way that sort of does it any type of justice? I don't think it does, but that's just me. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Remember, if you liked the video, then give the video a like. And if you want to share the video, then share the goddamn video. Why? Because it gets it seen by a lot of people, and it helps us with the YouTube algorithm, okay? I want to get this channel to 1,000 subscribers by June 1st, and we're not going to do it just by sitting here, okay? I'm going to give you the meat, and I'm going to give it to you raw, okay? Here's the raw meat. The raw meat is, let's do this. let's grow this MFer. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, if you want to share the video, by all means do so. It does help us with the algorithm and it helps it get seen. If you have not considered subscribing, I would hope you would consider subscribing. Now would be the best time to join the army of beautiful badasses. We always have a good time. We always have fun, and we have drawn the line and will continue to hold the line, protecting the good Professor Tolkien and his works from nonsense like the Rings of Pewter. And finally, if you are a returning subscriber, excuse me, I almost choked on my own spit. If you are a returning subscriber, as always, thank you from the bottom of my heart. You guys and gals are the bestesses ever. Okay, you are like you are the Guy Ladriels to my Howblands. I don't know. That sounded like something that needs a cream or something like that, right? Like a rash. I've got the Howblands. Anyway, yeah, so that's it. That's all I got for right now. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Remember, also, we have the Discord channel, so if you're interested, go over and join that. We have a whole bunch of topics that we discuss: writing, artistic stuff, D&D, Dragonlance, Tolkien, the whole 9 yards. It's more than just one topic. We have a whole bunch of stuff that we talk about over there. So go check that out. I'll put the link in the description below. And we also have a merch store. Got a bunch of shirts and other stuff there. So I will put the link to that as well down in the description below. So yeah, until then, guys, remember, be good, be safe, be awesome, but more importantly, stay more dorkish.